Today I'm going to be swatching all of the Urban Decay Moondust eyeshadows. I believe they have recently launched 2 more shades, which I do not have, but otherwise these are all the shades that I have, including these 2 palettes they launched around holiday time of 2023. And I do have dedicated eye swatch videos of both of these palettes. I also compare these in a video featuring the Moira eyeshadows that are kind of similar to these. If you're interested, I will link all those videos down in the description box. For this video, I will only be doing swatches. I'm first going to be showing you the swatches in diffused lighting, and then I will be showing you also with a brighter light, which definitely tends to bring out the sparkle a bit more. The shade is called Wild Dipper, and it's definitely looking very, very sparkly. I haven't noticed in general, these are pretty harder pressed. This one feels extra sparkly. You can really feel the particles in there when you're swatching. And something that's very specific to these Moondust shadows is it almost seems like these sparkle flecks are kind of a little bit more sitting on top and separated from their base. This is a beautiful, like, champagne-y bronzy shade. It's very, very shiny. Next up is Space Cowboy, and this one definitely feels a little bit different. It feels like there's less of the flecks in it. And these are so sheer. This one has more of a yellowy orangey base to it, with the sparkles sitting on top. I do think that the sparkles kind of tend to sit and flatten out a bit if you're using your finger, but if you use these with a brush, you'll probably get a bit of fallout. But in terms of differences, I definitely think that Wild Dipper is shinier. Next up is Rebel Star. This is like a pinky neutral shade. And this one has a bit more of a metallic, slightly metallic, more maybe satin-like base to it. And the sparkles are like silvery and they sit on top. Cosmic Craze is definitely a bit of a darker shade out of all of these. I can really see the sparkles sitting on top here. It's got a reddish brown base to it. Here's what it looks like on my finger with it pretty smoothed out. Next up is Glitter Rock. And this one is got a little bit of a taupey, kind of like a really cool tone, taupey, grayish purple. And it's really sitting down in the base. And then the sparkles, I think the sparkles on top are a little bit more evenly spread out than in the shade above it. I can really see these kind of just sitting wherever, but this one feels a little bit more uniform across. Next shade is Solstice. I think this is definitely a fan favorite in general. And this one is such a beautiful, basically reddish blue, brown, green shade. It's not very opaque and it's pretty dry, and I feel like it's actually hard panning a little bit, but I think this one has probably the least amount of sparkles, very wet looking. I do have to use a glitter primer with these because the flecks do give me quite a bit of fallout throughout the day because I do have hooded lids. And even with the primer, some of these shades, depending on the shade, give me fallout throughout the day. Next is Lithium. This one feels more like Space Cowboy. This is a really beautiful, cooler tone brown. These sparkles feel more uniform, kind of like the shade above it. They're not necessarily sitting as much far away from it. And then the last of these singles is Cosmic. And this one feels a bit more kind of piecey, a little bit more powdery, but very hard pressed and dry. And here's what that one looks like. It's super subtle, a little bit on the icy side, but not in a silvery way. So here's all the singles swatched out in just kind of regular lighting. And here they are with a super bright light, kind of like direct sunlight, definitely way more sparkly. Onto these 2 palettes. I'm not sure if they're available anymore, but this one is the Space Rider. This is the more neutral quad. So first up is Star Cowgirl. And this one feels very soft, but not really dry as the singles. And then there's Space Cowboy, which is different from the Space Cowboy that is pressed. And this one definitely, I can see the flecks of sparkles really separated. Wild Dipper rides again. It's a beautiful, warmer, almost like a bronzy, orangey, sparkly shade. And then Cosmic Space Dust is just a beautiful, cooler toned brown with gold flecks in it. And then Galactic Cowgirl is a little bit more colorful in a way because it does have like a pink and a bluish silver. So first is Cosmic Cowgirl. Very, very sparkly. Definitely drier to the touch. Cowgirl Warrior is a pink. And Cowgirl Rider, which is just a very true, beautiful bronze. I don't think this one is particularly sparkly. I think some of these other shades are more sparkly than that one. And then Emo Cowgirl, which is that blue silvery shade. Here are the swatches in non-direct bright lighting. And here they are in bright direct lighting, like sunlight. Really brings out the sparkle. I'm going to do a couple of comparisons. I have already done them in previous videos, but I thought it'd be helpful in this one as well. So starting off with Star Cowgirl, and then Cosmic Cowgirl. And Cosmic, this one definitely feels kind of thick. This is the single. It's really hard to kind of put down and pick up. So Star Cowgirl has a bit more of a champagne to it, while the other two shades are definitely more like whitish. And Cosmic Cowgirl by far has the most sparkle in it. Next shade is Space Cowboy from the palette. A little bit harder pressed, just like the other Space Cowboy. That's the single. I feel like they're both pretty hard pressed, but I think that the single is even more harder pressed. I feel like the tone's just a little bit different. Wild Dipper from the palette. Cosmic Craze from the single eyeshadow. This one has more like lighter flecks in it. It looks a little bit different, but I definitely think they're too similar. And then I'm just going to add Rebel Star to the lineup here. I think this is a bit different. It's definitely lighter. But yeah, and I feel like the sparkle is more smooth and sheen-like versus sparkly. And then Cosmic Space Dust from the palette. Lithium Single. They feel definitely different. Lithium is more opaque and the sparkle is more uniform. And Cosmic Space Dust feels more dry and the sparkles kind of sit on top. So here they are all compared. Here they are in bright light. Let me know in the comments below what you think of the Moondust shadows. Do you think they're worth it? Personally, with my preferences and being very familiar with the indie space, what I like, and having tried these out, I don't think personally that they're worth it. I could see them being worth it for other people with preferences such as just wanting a really nice one and done shadow, something that they will really use very often, and somebody who doesn't usually experience a lot of fallout. If you have hooded lids, definitely would recommend, if you want to try these, try a tacky primer with these. It will also amp them up, but I just cannot get these sparkles to stay on my lid even with the glitter primers. So I learned the hard way not to wear these to work because I had literally all the flecks of sparkles all on my face by the end of the day. I wore the Space Cowboy single recently and I was honestly not very impressed. I think that these look the absolute best when they're in really bright light. I think some of them look a little bit dull once they're actually on the lid and you're just looking at them with some not bright lighting, which is kind of the case for a lot of shadows. But for $24, I really kind of would want them to be very punchy, and also none of these are really particularly shifty or duochrome. Even though Solstice looks like a duochrome, it really doesn't translate as much on the lid. So those are my thoughts on these. If you enjoyed the video and or you found it helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you next time.